Space travel, especially faster than light travel, is a quintessential part of every science fiction world. Moreover, it seems that our most popular science fiction series have all come up with different ways to achieve traveling faster than light. In Star Trek, they use the warp drive to create a bubble of subspace around the ship, distorting space-time and propelling the ship forward. In Star Wars, hyperdrives hurl ships into the alternate dimension of hyperspace. In Dune, ships called Guild Highliners propel humanity at faster-than-light speeds, guided by the enhanced brains of Guild navigators, whose overconsumption of spice allows them to see the future and steer the ships away from any dangers in their path. These are all well and good. So what do we do in 40k? Well, we get a 5-kilometer-long space church to literally tear open a hole in the fabric of reality and fly into space hell. Yeah. Humanity's travels around the galaxy at FTL speeds are accomplished by piloting their ships through the warp, a dimension where time and space exist, but simultaneously don't exist. And evil gods and horrifying demons definitely exist. Now, despite what I just told you, there are actually some downsides to warp travel, such as the constant threat of your vessel being boarded by those demons, because you are literally flying through space hell. Additionally, the only humans that can steer a ship through the warp are known as navigators, mutant humans born with a third eye, and the incredible psychic capability to guide ships through the warp relatively safely, a task that would instantly shred the mind of any lesser human. So what is this video about? Today, we're going to talk about the ins and outs of FTL travel in 40k, and there's quite a bit to talk about because, believe it or not, there are multiple ways to do it. We're also going to look at why humanity is stuck with the admittedly far worse and far scarier FTL method, and the fascinating politics that result from humanity's continued reliance on navigators. Let's start at the beginning. Many tens of millions of years ago, there were some creepy-looking gross aliens called the Old Ones. Now these guys, it turns out, were just as smart as they were disgusting. They became the first race to conquer the galaxy and invented an ingenious way to travel from one galactic edge to the other. This system of FTL travel was known as the Webway. Quick side note, these are not the Old Ones, these are the Aeldari, who we're going to be talking about quite a bit later on in the video. I couldn't find any images of the Webway that didn't have the Aeldari in them, so in case you're like, what happened to the creepy reptilian alien people? Why are there elves here instead? That's why. Because the Aeldari are elves. Anyways, just wanted to let you know. Okay, back to the video. A psychically constructed series of massive gateways and tunnels originally partitioned off from the dangers of the warp, the Webway allowed the Old Ones to fly their ships through a subspatial dimension in relative safety. And they made great use of this ability, seeding different planets and systems across the galaxy with different forms of life. One such planet that was visited by the Old Ones was ancient Terra, and the tree-dwelling primates that the Old Ones created and left there would one day flourish, eventually gaining sentience and evolving into modern humans. Allegedly. Another species created by the Old Ones were the Aeldari, who themselves established dominance over the galaxy over 1 million years before the rise of humanity. They became the keepers of the Webway, mastering its use, creating new realms and worlds within it, and growing ever more powerful, even as other sentient species tried to knock them down. Over tens of thousands of years and countless galactic conflicts, it became clear that the Aeldari would not and could not be defeated by any other alien race. As fate would have it, however, their demise was coming, but at their own hand. Their ability to shrug off any and all potential usurpers led the Aeldari to become possibly the most insufferable, cocky assholes who have ever lived. And over the millennia, the Aeldari began to indulge in anything and everything that interested them. Eventually, the once great race who had prided themselves on their nobility and grace, sick rhyme by the way, found themselves overcome with the innate need to fuel their twisted passions and indulge in every extreme. This pursuit of excess gradually became a blight on their entire galactic society. As their excessive pursuits advanced, entire Aeldari worlds, including many of those hidden in the Webway, became dedicated to indulging in their darkest desires. Countless Aeldari began to live solely to fill the voids in their souls, participating in the most vile and shameless behavior a sentient being could take part in. The result of countless trillions of Aeldari souls continuing to corrupt themselves and others in such a way had a profound but unforeseen effect in the warp, where the emotions and actions of sentient creatures in real space are reflected. A dark being, depraved and perverse, was being formed, fueled by the psychic shadows of the Aeldari's actions. As the Aeldari finally reached their most pitiful collective form, Slaanesh, the demon god of excess, was born. At the moment of her birth, there was not a single Aeldari who did not feel her claws dig into their very souls. In an instant, billions of Aeldari across the galaxy fell dead. After millennia upon millennia of Aeldari souls being peacefully reborn after death, there now awaited only one fate for them: eternal torment in the psychic gullet of she who thirsts. And what's the worst part of this whole thing? The Webway got all messed up. Come on! Following the birth of Slaanesh, the Webway, once pristine, became instead a shattered and dangerous realm, now filled with demonic beings and strange creatures. Those Aeldari that survived the catastrophic birth of Slaanesh still now use the Webway to travel between their few and far between worlds. And the Drukhari, members of the Aeldari who chose to continue to participate in their gross debauchery, hide on their craft world of Kamara in some dark corner of the Webway. Now this brings us to what we've all been waiting for, the rise of humanity. Yeah, humanity! As I mentioned, the Aeldari's actions for the thousands of years leading up to their great fall was reflected in the warp, long before the birth of Slaanesh. These reflections manifested in massive warp storms, where the psychic tides of the warp became incredibly turbulent, as if caught in a hurricane. This made regular warp travel impossible. When Slaanesh was born, however, the warp storms calmed, and the Emperor of Mankind, having reunited Terra and established his 18 legions of Space Marines, was able to launch the Great Crusade, his effort to find his Primarch sons and reunite the million human worlds around the galaxy that had been disconnected following humanity's Great War against their thinking machines. See, say what you will about Warhammer, there's always something going on. The Aeldari are off being absolute space freaks, humanity's fighting a civil war against its own technological creations, the Tau are hanging out doing socialism and building cool robots of their own, and the Orcs are flying through the vacuum of space with their windows open because they think they can breathe in space. Which means they can. Anyways, this brings us back to what I said right at the beginning of the video, that the way that many lesser races in 40k travel through the galaxy involves doing so through the warp, the dimension of the Chaos Gods, Slaanesh included. Humanity does so in great ships, bristling with weapons and enclosed within a bubble of projected real space known as a Geller field. This keeps the demons out, usually. After the ship's warp drive tears a hole in reality, the ship passes through it, entering the warp, and relies on its psychically gifted navigator to guide it back to safety, preferably at its destination, or at least close to it. So, after the Imperium of Mankind won its great battle at Ulanor, the Emperor, who up until this point had led humanity's conquest of the galaxy, decided it was time for him to return to Terra to work on a secret project. A project that was so secret, he decided to tell nobody, not even his Primarchs. In my last video, I stated that this decision by the Emperor was the fuck up to end all fuck ups, but he did have some legitimate reasoning behind his decision. The reason the Emperor didn't tell anyone apart from his number one OG homie Malkador, that's not his official imperial title by the way, I just assume that's what the Emperor calls him, and his elite personal guard, the Custodes, about his secret plan, was because his secret plan was to basically establish a safe portal for humanity to enter the Webway, allowing for far safer and faster traveling between the 1 million reunified imperial planets. So, the Emperor and his Custodes were not only trying to make the portal itself work properly, they were also trying to ward off the many demons that had infiltrated the Webway after the Aeldari's millennia-long ultimate freak sesh, and also cleanse the Webway itself of said demons. Additionally, and even more importantly, humanity's current form of FTL travel, going through the warp, relied massively on their navigators. As I said earlier, navigators are psychically enhanced human beings. They're actually classified as mutants, separate from regular humans, who at this stage were literally bred for navigation through the warp. They come from great houses who have provided the Imperium with navigators for thousands of years, and their rarity not only made them exceptionally important, it also granted them exceptional political power. Although the Emperor held ultimate control over the Imperium, being the Emperor and everything, the trillions or even quadrillions of humans that live throughout the galaxy would quickly perish if the Navis Nobilite, the organization that dispatches navigators on Imperial ships and has final say over all things navigator, decided not to play ball with the Imperium. And guess whose jobs would be immediately eliminated once the Emperor finished his Webway project? That's right, the navigators! And so clearly, if the navigators caught word of the Emperor's efforts on Terra, they would basically go on strike and humanity would very likely enter another age of strife. However, were the Emperor to succeed, he would usher in a true golden age for the Imperium and practically guarantee humanity's complete dominance in the galaxy. And we all know what happens next. The Emperor's favorite son Horus got his feelings hurt because his dad didn't tell him his plans. His Primarch brother Lorgar, having gotten really into his demon era, instructed his chaplain Erebus to manipulate and gaslight the shit out of Horus to turn him against the Emperor, and another Primarch brother, Magnus the Red, trying to psychically warn the Emperor of Horus's plans to attempt a coup, used his psychic warp powers to astro project himself to Terra from across the galaxy, destroying a bunch of psychic barriers and other magic stuff, which opened a bunch of rifts into the warp through the Terran Webway gate and totally fucked up everything the Emperor had done. As a result, following the Heresy, the Emperor, who was essentially killed by Horus, resigned himself to being placed on the Golden Throne, the piece of technology that was supposed to act as humanity's Terran Webway portal, but would now instead allow the Emperor to use his last reserves of energy to project himself psychically in the warp, creating the Astronomicon, the galactic lighthouse that navigators can see to allow them to continue to guide humanity through the stars. Oh, and also, the Golden Throne is constantly failing, little by little, day by day, and nobody knows how to fix it. The only person that might know how to fix it is the Emperor, and he's a zombie at this point, so that's great. So, in my opinion, if the Emperor had just been a little bit better of a dad and told his sons, who were all like hundreds of years old at this point, by the way, to keep his little secret of trying to open up the Webway, this could have potentially all been avoided. But then he would have had to tell them the truth about the warp, and how he bargained with its gods for the knowledge to create his sons, and how those same gods personally kidnapped them all as infants, and how they all low-key have some dark warp magic in their DNA. So you can see why he preferred to just say nothing. Basically, 40k can be summed up as, if only this one good thing had happened, the next 10,000 years of torment that followed could have been avoided. Except that the one good thing that needs to happen never happens. Like, ever. And everybody gets tormented for like millions of years. Anyways, thanks for watching. If you made it to the end of the video, please let me know if you liked it by either leaving a comment or a like, or even subscribing, and let me know what you want to see next. Bye!